I don't have the background. Somebody send it to me?
Me either. Just I didn't do it because you don't have it.
No problem.
Wait a minute. Hey Mo,
Hey, Ricky.
the doctor is in.
We are, and it is the start of Women's History Month. It is, I'm gonna say TNBC week, right? Like, is this the
Month, a
week,
month, the whole month, Mo, the whole month.
the whole month? Oh,
Yeah.
even better.
Yep.
But I
No,
know
every
TNBC
day in
Day is coming
March.
up.
Sorry, I know I was going to say that every day in March is TNBC Awareness Day. So great.
I love it. And really, every day should be TNBC Awareness Day,
Yeah,
right? Like, it doesn't
hello.
deserve just a month. And people are living with it 24/7, 365. So we're here to talk about it. We got a jam-packed show full of some powerhouse hitters,
We
some
did.
living legends, some family and friends. I'm excited to see everybody tonight.
I know. So we have, these people saved my life, right? So, I called Haley when my doctor said we have nothing for you, and she found me a doc, and I didn't die. 11 years. So she's my sister from another mother. And then she introduced me to Melissa, cancer fashionista, a year later, who became my first TNBC friend. But these amazing ladies are on the TNBC Foundation board. And I've been on the board for a while, since I was sick, really, since I got better, right?
Yeah.
But what we have here is really the founders of the TNBC Foundation, the founders, and they founded it in 2006. And I'm going to let them tell the story. And then we have Latoya, our baby Latoya, who calls me, what do you call me now? Mama, breasty mama. What do you call me?
Breasty mama.
Breasty mama. So, and she has something really good to celebrate, but I'll let her shout that out too. So hey, why don't we introduce Haley? Why don't you start the introductions, and then we'll get talking about your history and really just we're celebrating TNBC today. We are celebrating.
We are. So much
Organization.
progress has been made since we first started this organization in 2006. Our friend Nancy Zena was diagnosed very young in her 30s with triple negative breast cancer. At the time, we had no idea what it was. We didn't even know that there was more than one type of breast cancer. And Andrea, Jen, Allison, and we were all in a Mommy and Me class at one point, and then in play group with Nancy, and we formed a bond. And when she was diagnosed, it really impacted all of us. And at the end of the day, it led us to create the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation. And we're all still here. We're all still friends. And we have been joined on the board. We were part of the original board and have been joined by so many incredible women, including Ricky, of course, and Melissa, both of whom were former chairs of the board, right? Melissa's chair now, actually. And it's been great. And then when it comes to TNBC Awareness Day, TNBC Awareness Month, it was something started by a former executive director of the foundation as well, when we realized from talking to women in our community that they felt like October just didn't really represent what we were, and didn't give a voice to the people that are actually living with triple negative breast cancer. So we needed something of our own. And the fact that we have all of these beautiful ladies here with us today, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves too. I know not everyone sees the same screen I can see, so I'm just going to go by who I see first. So Allison, you want to introduce yourself?
Lucky me. Allison Axenrod. Like Haley said, I was an original founder of the foundation. I am, and friends of Nancy's, and we started the foundation when there was really nothing for triple negative breast cancer, and we literally started it by selling towels to raise money for a foundation. I forget, was that you, Jen? Somebody who had the towel?
It was Robin.
Robin.
Robin
Oh.
Littman.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That was our seed money.
We took the money from raising selling the towels and decided to put it towards starting a foundation. So here we are, all these years later.
Jen?
Wow.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Sweetwood. I'm actually, Nancy was married to my cousin, my first cousin. I wasn't fortunate enough to be in the play group, but by association. And I remember our very first triple negative day 10 years ago. My daughter had a lemonade stand and raised over $1,000 selling pink lemonade.
Wow, what was in that lemonade? What was in that lemonade?
Exactly.
She's a good
Well,
salesperson.
Yeah, so lemonade, pink donuts, anything pink we could get our hands on, and some towels, t-shirts, anything. And she continued to do it, which was great.
She's done so much for us over the years. She's been amazing. And Andrea?
So my name is Andrea Moline. I was there at the beginning as well. I think it's worth pointing out, one thing about how far that we've come is the original money that was raised was actually raised to cover treatment for Nancy that her insurance company wasn't paying for. She was at Sloan Kettering and the doctors were recommending certain treatment and her insurance denied it. So a family friend of theirs started making these towels, and that was what the money was for. It was over $9,000. And when we got to that point, we said to Nancy, here's the money. The chemo ultimately got covered. And I said, there's going to be something else that's not covered. You're going to have some other expenses. No, she didn't want it because it was raised for something she didn't need it. So that was sort of how we got to where we are, like, oh, okay, let's do something else with it, because you couldn't give it back to everybody. So we figured, well, maybe we can help some other people. And, we had no idea what was to come, and here we are today. So, and it better, I would have to think that now triple negative patients, of course, still many struggles, but hopefully they wouldn't, they would get that treatment covered. That was so hard for her at the time.
Exactly.
Wow.
And
So-
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you guys, so 2006 to now, you started by selling towels. How much money have you put into research for triple negative over these years?
Oh my God, it's in the millions. It's many millions. And I think the reason for that is we really tried to leverage our investments and make sure that wherever we're putting our money, we get, other organizations, scientific organizations, sometimes other advocacy groups to contribute and double the money or triple the money sometimes, as was the case with Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation. So we've really been able to, we've raised a lot through various initiatives, but we've also been able to get incredible matches and work with some great partners to maximize our investments, which is great. We've really funded some incredible research, and so many of the researchers we funded went on to get NIH funding and just do incredible things with their career.
Right, Agori didn't go yet.
I know. I didn't get a chance yet. So like I said before, our board of directors keeps growing, and we keep adding more and more incredible people to the mix. And Dr. Agori, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with us?
Hi. So I'm Agori Kalu. I'm a breast surgical oncologist in the North Jersey area, primarily the Newark areas where I have done most of my work with women in breast cancer. And I was invited to join the TNBC Foundation, I would say about 2-3 years ago. It should be about that time ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I think I first met Ricky. It was DC. It was a Komen Truth to Power conference. I think that's where I first met her. And I guess I made a good impression, because the next thing I know, I get an email.
I sucked you in, I sucked people in.
That's
I
how it
sucked you in.
goes. Same thing happened to me. That's it.
I sucked you into my family. No.
To join the foundation, which was something I was so excited to be a part of. So, my patient population is primarily women of color. For those who may or may not know, Newark is a city that is, self-designated African-American population. The African population is over 50%, almost 60%. We have a very high Latina population as well. So, you know, working within the hospital systems, University Hospital First and St. Michael's, I was seeing a lot of women with triple negative breast cancer. And these were young women. You know, we always see the national average of, you know, premenopausal or young breast cancer patients, meaning women under the age of 40 or 45. The national, you know, average, I say, is about 7 to 10%. In our population, I saw over 20%. And it was something that was devastating to me, and something that, you know, started working with the community, developing task force groups within the University Hospital and Newark system. And fortunately enough, I was also appointed for the state of New Jersey, the governor's task force on cancer care and research, heading up the breast cancer division, and trying to bring more attention to the desperate need for information on breast health, breast cancer education, as well as triple negative breast cancer awareness, and how devastating it is to women of color, disenfranchised populations, and marginalized patients in the state of New Jersey. So it's been a pleasure working with this foundation. It's amazing the work that's been done, the millions of dollars you've discussed towards research, and not just that, also reaching out to the community, reaching out to women in need, because, you know, it's not just giving the money to the research. Of course, that's needed, because without that, we won't get these new, you know, drugs and new, you know, innovative tools to treat the cancer. But it's also reaching out to the women on an individual basis. So much support, nurturing, care, love, education, knowledge for them and their families. This is what the foundation brings to them. And it's something that's so needed. And I see it all the time in the patient population, how, you know, they cherish that one-on-one personal support so much, you know, almost as much as the treatment itself that they're getting for their cancer. So thanks again for inviting me. I love being a part of this foundation. I hope to be a part of this foundation for as long as it exists. Thanks.
You're stuck with us, Agori. You're definitely stuck with us. You're not going anywhere.
We're gonna keep giving you jobs, don't worry. And Melissa?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Mo and Ricky, my dear friends, for bringing us here today. I cannot believe every time March comes around, I'm like, I can't believe it's Triple Negative Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And it's our 10th year, which is really exciting. I joined the club here. It'll be, I can't believe it, it'll be 10 years ago on March 13th. I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. Thank you. And there was a lot of breast cancer in my family. My mom was on my case to get a BRCA test. And when I was 32, I did, and I was very closely monitored. And I was very, very lucky that it was caught early stage. But regardless of the actions that I took, I had my ovaries removed, the whole thing. And I still was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. So I happen to live in the same town as Haley Zimmerman. Our daughters actually went to high school together. And when I was diagnosed, all my mama friends were like, you got to talk to Haley. So Haley and I have become friends. She's an incredible mentor, and she really took me under her wing. And we have an ongoing joke that when she first asked me to step forward and share my story and become a champion, I was like, what's that? She was like, well, you can be on our website and we could share your story. And I'm like, I don't want anyone to know I have breast cancer. And now I'm like, where's the camera? But all kidding aside, Haley taught me the importance of advocacy and sharing your story and community. Because for anyone that's listening that was just diagnosed today, or you know someone, the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation is an incredible home, not just a resource for information, but we have calls every month led by our fearless Kelly Thomas, and they are really supportive Zoom calls. So I'm just so honored and happy to be board chair of an organization that not just educates, but also takes everyone in as if they were our own. And when I was first diagnosed, I was actually a fashion and beauty publicist, a fashionista, if you will. And I just could not find the Vogue of breast cancer, you know, a place where I could figure out what kind of bra I needed or what kind of lashes I should wear. So I started Cancer Fashionista and have also launched the Cancer Fashionista Foundation. So I try and help women look and feel their most beautiful during their journey and beyond. So I'm just so grateful to be here. Thank you all.
Cool.
But we're grateful to have you and so thankful for the movement that you all have started. So let's talk
We
about.
didn't do Latoya. We got to do.
Oh yeah, there it is. Let's talk about Latoya.
Latoya is the reason we have Triple Negative Breast Cancer Awareness Day.
I love it.
Latoya and women like you who are going through treatment right now. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Latoya. I'm 38, mom of 3, wife, and I'm a PA by trade, work in emergency medicine, but I became a triple negative breast cancer patient July 26, 2021. At the age of 36, I was diagnosed with stage 3C invasive ductal carcinoma after finding my own lump. I was initially misdiagnosed as having a galactocele because I had recently stopped breastfeeding. And through self-advocacy, I was correctly diagnosed and received, went through neoadjuvant chemotherapy at the break of Keytruda, or immunotherapy, and I was never offered immunotherapy by my oncologist. He was fired, found another oncologist who, cared more about me. Advocated to get in clinical trials, and I'm at the end of my clinical trial now after going through a bilateral mastectomy and 25 rounds of radiation. I have one more treatment left tomorrow of my immunotherapy. Woo! It's been a long 19 months of treatment.
Wow.
Yeah, about 19 months, and I'm just looking forward to my reconstruction, at some point in the next 6 months or so, and just praying to God that it's just all up from here and that I can live and see my babies go to college and go to prom and, all those good things. So thank you for having me.
And they're 4, 6, and 8.
Yeah. 3, 6, and 8. Yeah. Yeah.
Girl, where do you find the energy?
Doing the espresso, a double shot of espresso.
They're very busy. They're all beauty queens and dancers, and they're doing all the things, these little girls.
Ricky is the one with the energy. I don't know where she gets her energy from. Okay.
No.
Yeah, but
Cool.
yeah, but
So great. I really, we worked up for over the years, and I really believe that. And what I tell people that this is your home. If you have triple negative breast cancer, everything you need is on this website. And I think one of the best things for me going through was the support groups or the online groups that we had. Because I remember one night, maybe my second chemo, I got that bone pain from Neupogen, the drug that redoes your white blood cell counts. And I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning saying, oh my God, the cancer's in my bones. I was freaking out. Of course, I called the doctor. No one's phone at 4 a.m. And so I said, I know what I can do. I can go into the groups. And I went into the groups and like, Ricky, take a Tylenol and go to bed. You're fine. It's your bone pain. It's going to go away tomorrow. And it was like, just to be able to have 24/7 access to information that I could not get from my doctor when I needed it was just a blessing. And then I became totally dependent on those groups. I started asking them everything. And it's funny because one night I went into the metastatic group and they kicked me out. They instantly knew that I wasn't metastatic. This is my first go round, when I wasn't metastatic, but I just thought it was so great that it's a community. It's a community that we find here and I love everybody. I love all of our breasties. I really do, but I really believe that we're special. I believe our TNBC breasties are special because we have a different disease. The fact that we don't have a drug to prevent recurrence, the only breast cancer that doesn't have a drug to prevent recurrence, makes us special, and I think that we have different needs, and this foundation answers all of our needs and prayers and wishes and everything that we need. So Haley works really hard like a dog to make that happen. And It's a great,
We have, because we have the board that we have and the volunteers that we have, I think my job is so much easier than it would be. I mean, we really have so much support, and you touched on the support that someone feels when they come to the foundation at first. You mentioned the discussion forums. So the discussion forums are obviously found on our website, but in addition to those, we also have 2 private Facebook groups, and they have thousands of members, and they're active, like you said, 24/7 also. So that's the thing. We have a hotline, right? We call it our TNBC helpline, and you can access it from our website. But that operates during normal business hours, right? And that's not when people panic. People usually panic in the middle of the night when they wake up and a crazy thought comes into their mind, or they feel a pain and they want answers now. And so having someone to reach out to whenever you really need it, I think it's so important. And that's what we've tried to create.
and it's really there. It's really there. It's really there. So one of the reasons why Latoya is here today, other than celebrating with us, is we're starting a new support group next week, next Tuesday. I'll put the information in the chat, but basically it's for Black women with TNBC. And so, we have our Touch Talk on the first Saturday of every month, and Haley has really 3 support groups, one for metastatic and 2 for TNBC friends. But we felt like maybe there's a way we need to, kind of make a haven for Black women with TNBC. And actually, so Latoya is going to help lead that for us, and also with Deltra James, who couldn't be here tonight. She had a family issue. But so we'll have both an early stage, if you want to call 3C an early stage, but whatever, that's what the rule says. And then a metastatic group within that group, so that we can break the conversation up based on the needs of the people who are in the room. Because even metastatic TNBC is a whole nother animal that we haven't even really talked about yet. But Deltra's living with it at age, how old is Deltra? 37? She's a year younger than you, right?
No, I think she's a year older than me.
Is she okay? Well, she's right in
She's
there
under
with-
40. We're all under, we're
Yeah,
between 35 to 40. Yeah.
5 babies. She's got 5 babies. I think she was diagnosed at 35 with metastatic TNBC de novo, so right off the bat. So they'll be kind of monitoring that group, and so we're going to do the first one on Tuesday at 8:00 at night. So we'll see how that goes. But I think we need these conversations to happen. We need to have these places that are safe and where people can go to talk about this horribleness that we're all dealing with, because it is not fun. It is not fun.
And to get peer support, because there's really nothing like talking to someone who's walking in your shoes. So
Right.
when we first started the Zoom meetups, we started with one, Tuesdays with TNBC friends. And I remember the first one, what did we have, Melissa? I think there were 90 some, maybe 98 people signed up for it. And it was people, at all stages of the disease, some people who were even years past, but were dealing with this fear of recurrence, and they wanted to connect with the community too. So we started with that. And then we added Metastatic Mondays, and then we added Thriver Thursdays. So, and these are all, diverse groups of people coming together to share their stories and really support each other through it. But like Ricky said, there's something special about having a group that is for Black women with triple negative breast cancer alone. So now we'll have that too.
Yeah, we'll have that too. We'll have something for everybody, and everybody can go. I mean, anybody can go to any of them, but
and the great thing is, if you want a lot of support during the month, now you have 5 places to go, right?
Right, 5 places to go. You can go to every one of them. You can go to
Yes.
all of them and talk and
And a lot of people do.
I know, and meet more people, because I don't know, there's nothing like a breasty love hug.
It's so true. And the other reason that we have so many of these groups is there's different time zones, and there's, different schedules. So we like to accommodate everyone. And for anyone that's like, I don't know if I want to go on a Zoom call, you can go on and not even, speak or interact. You can just listen. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. And that's the beauty of it.
You don't even have to have your camera on if you don't want to.
Yeah. And
I
you don't
love
have to
that
talk.
because everybody's not in the same place, and It's so nice to be able to refer patients, because when they get diagnosed, I've had a number of patients, number one, who say, well, triple negative, that sounds like it's negative 3 times. That doesn't sound like a bad thing at all.
I know, that's what I said. That doesn't sound so bad.
That doesn't sound so bad, right? And then when you get into it and their face just drops, and then you say, I'll say, can we pair you up with someone who's been where you are, or who's been going through what you're going through? And sometimes those interactions can be really variable depending on where the person is that we're pairing them up with, right? The buddy system can be a little bit interesting, but to have a full community of folks to talk to and get all the different perspectives, because even in TNBC, each tumor is as different as the person, who carries a diagnosis and their lived experience and what's going on with them and their lives. And so it's nice to have that virtual space to be able to identify what kinds of things you talk about in the support groups and in the especially for this month, but what kinds of conversations are happening?
Not everything. Everything from side effects to sex to everything.
No topic is off limits. We
Yep.
are girlfriends. We're women. We literally, and sometimes we laugh. I mean, we actually have fun.
Yeah, we do. It's really fun. It's really, but it's also though, like, did you take Keytruda? Did you try it? Did you take carboplatin? Did you throw up when you did this? Did this give you the runs? I mean, it's all about.
And radiation, like, oh my God, did this happen to your skin? And
Yeah.
then they exchange and they start chatting. Oh, try this product. It's amazing. The exchange, because we don't, it's hard for, not all of us have all the information.
Exactly. I was
And
going
the
to
other
ask.
cool thing, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say that it's so important for you to be engaged into these support groups, because I know when I was first diagnosed, I was just given a packet, and I'm not trying to read through a whole complete packet of paperwork right now after finding out about a diagnosis at 36 years old. And it was only one of the nurses that like stressed mental health. But I do regret I found a triple negative breast cancer support group online, like through Facebook, and I saw the TNBC Foundation. But I'll be honest, it was like hearing about some of the complications that some of the women that were going through, it was stressing me out. It was overwhelming for me. So I had decided at that point, for my mental health preservation, that I had to depart from the support group at that time. But at the same time, I feel like if I had stayed in the group, I would have found out about the immunotherapy for TNBC at an earlier point to advocate for myself with that. So, I do regret it. So I do think that the support group is very helpful, because you found out about things that you may not be abreast of.
Breast
That's the
of-
point.
And I love it. And doctors don't know a lot of stuff beyond what they know,
Mhm.
but they're not, they don't know all the emotional stuff that we're dealing with. Or you really just don't have time to
Mhm.
talk to us about the stuff that happens every day. That, I'm really too tired to feed my kids today. Like, do you have any suggestions for what I can make for dinner? Because we're sick of pizza. I'm just really tired. My husband's an asshole today. Or, like those things that we deal with because you know what? Life does not stop. You have this disease. You're doing all
Right.
the stuff you have to do, but your life does not stop. I mean, Latoya's got 3 girls. They don't care. I mean, they don't understand. And actually her oldest daughter is like the most sweet, adorable, compassionate thing. Mom, are you feeling okay? She cracks me up all the time. One time we were on a Zoom and she's like, Miss Ricky, my mom is really tired. I think you should turn the Zoom off now.
I love that.
You know,
I
like,
love that.
it was
Talk
like-
about advocacy in action. I love
I know,
it.
I know. But I-
She's very protective. Yeah.
she's very, she's told me to get off the Zoom a few times, but she's too cute. But we need that camaraderie. And I think, and then also just even on the website, the information that we have about TNBC on our website, there's nothing like it. You can go on all the other ones, website, WebMD and Komen and, breastcancer.org, but we have the best stuff to know what to do. We really do have the best and the best stuff.
Yeah, because of that, I mean, when I found out about Keytruda on my own by just being a virtual attendee for San Antonio, I found Ricky somehow through my research, and I called her. And it's like, have you heard of this drug? Like, why I didn't get this? My doctor didn't give it to me. And she was outraged. So yeah, that's true. Because of the content that was there, when I first heard you speak, I was like, okay, she relates to me. Let me reach out to her. And she was very responsive.
Like Haley was for me. Yeah.
That content has evolved for 16 years. We've been growing that and changing it and adjusting it based on everybody's comments and learning, what people need and what they're looking for. And it went through a lot of iterations from our very first one that was not very helpful.
We were trying to raise money. Remember that? We were trying to raise money. So it was, and this was obviously, way back before there were FDA approved drugs or anything. So we were basically like listing these really, bleak statistics, thinking that if people read that, they would donate money. And then I remember, what was that email that we got?
We had a meeting. It was during the summer, and it was outside at Allison's house, I think. And we said the people were coming to the website and they were feeling hopeless because they were reading true statistics, but we weren't offering much hope. I mean, to be fair, there wasn't a ton of hope to offer at the time.
Yeah.
But the way in which we had presented it was not well received. And somebody, not me, I don't remember who, reworded it, to kind of make it about what we were offering rather than just, giving statistics, because that really wasn't helpful.
That was our first, we really started, we knew we had to listen to our audience. So I think the exact words were, just found your depressing website.
Yes, I think that was the subject line of the email, but you know what, that really set us on the right course, right?
Yes.
So the fact that the original, our original attempt was such a, colossal failure, basically.
I would not say it was a failure. You know what? We got good feedback
learned.
and we improved.
That's right.
Right, you learned.
We got great
So it was a
feedback.
learning experience.
And
Yeah.
for us, I think that's where all of our current programs start from now. So rather than deciding what we think would be useful for the community and then making it happen, we're constantly talking to the community. We're constantly trying to hear, what do you want? So that's how, one Zoom became 5 Zooms, right? Because when we spoke to our community and we spoke to the people participating in the Zooms, we said, hey, do you think it would be useful to have a group just for metastatic women? And they said yes. And then that's how that program was born. And so much of what we do comes directly from the needs as they're expressed to us by people going through triple negative.
And it brings up a really good point, Haley, because we got some questions in the chat and people are wanting to know. And let's start with the first question, and anybody can answer, but this might be for Dr. Kalu. The definition of triple negative breast cancer. So somebody was 10%, maybe you're 2%, maybe you're whatever. And then, how are we defining TNBC these days, or how are you defining it to your patients?
And doctor, you're on mute.
Hi. Okay. So the question was, what is triple negative breast cancer? The definition of triple negative breast cancer?
Well,
or is it
how
what
is it
percentage of
yes.
what percentage of of estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor? What's the threshold, I guess, is the better term before you consider it a triple negative or behaving like a triple negative tumor? It's really, really a difficult question to answer with just one basic answer. In other words, depending on which oncologist you talk to, which pathologist you talk to, physician you talk to, they may give you different numbers in regards to the threshold of the amount of estrogen or progesterone or HER2 expression is needed to designate, specifically, okay, this absolutely meets the triple negative criteria. But the general, definition is, breast cancer or tumor that does not express the estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, or HER2 new protein on its on its surface, on its cellular surface. And these, of course, are targeted areas that are targeted for potential therapeutic purposes. When it comes down to the sort of biochemical breakdown or the percentages of how much or how little estrogen needs to be present, estrogen receptor needs to be present or detected to be considered an estrogen receptor negative. At least in the hospitals I've worked in, we looked at less than like 3 to 5%. It was considered like the threshold. If you're less than that number, less than 5%, less than 3%, then it's considered like estrogen receptor negative. And the same sort of threshold for progesterone receptor. HER2/neu has a different sort of numbers to sort of mark the levels, and maybe Dr. Mo can chime in on this, but the threshold, the minimal threshold for HER2, I'm not quite sure what that number is. I don't know if you have an idea, Dr. Mo, but definitely these tumors can have a very, very minimal or low expression of these receptors or proteins on their cell surface. We tend to call them triple negative because they don't respond as well, obviously, to the therapies that are given for the hormone receptor or HER2 positive, strongly HER2 positive, strongly hormone receptor positive cancers. So they're sort of lumped into the triple negative designation. But I will tell you, times are changing, and that nowadays we're seeing that, we're looking back, I think sort of what we alluded to prior to the start of the session, for women that were put into the category of triple negative breast cancer, they may have very low or minimal expressions of estrogen receptor, progesterone, or even HER2. And some oncologists are sort of stepping out of the, sort of that box and actually offering some of these women maybe hormone receptor modulators, maybe HER2 antagonists, those sorts of things, because sometimes you got to sort of look into your armamentarium of different things you can offer women, because we know now breast cancer is an individualized thing. Just because something works for Anne doesn't mean it's going to work for Sue. So sometimes when we try different treatment options, it may not work to the best or maximal, effect that we have seen it in other patients. And some oncologists, try to think outside the box and have been seeing, well, even though they may have minimal expression of ER or positivity or HER2 positivity, maybe if we add, an antagonist to estrogen or an antagonist to HER2 into the mixture or a cocktail of treatments to see if that can help. And sometimes it does. So I think, that whole threshold, minimal threshold is sort of, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Dr. Mo?
Let me back up first and say how we even measure these things, right? Because the science behind how do you tell what somebody's hormone receptors are, that science is starting to change too, which is really comforting, I think, to know we're getting more precise. But the way we typically will measure what someone's hormone expression is on their cancer cells, we do a little tissue biopsy. We take a little piece of it, and then we put it on the microscope. And we look under that microscope and we put down a dye that labels or that colors the cell if the estrogen receptor is there. And then they actually count the number of cells and they say, okay, this percentage of cells lit up blue. And then they'll do the same thing for the progesterone. And I'm using random colors, but you get what I'm saying. They'll put the green dye down and how many cells lit up green, right? They'll put the one down for HER2, how many cells lit up purple. And they're literally counting the percentage of cells that have that stain around it or that ring around it. And so, as you can imagine, just counting the percentage of cells is, one, somewhat limited to the sample you got, right? Because your receptor is only good as the amount of tissue that you got. But two, more importantly, how does that tumor behave? Even if 5 out of 100 cells lit up with estrogen, does that mean that estrogen is driving your cancer to grow? Or should we treat it like estrogen is not driving your cancer to grow because 95% of the cells didn't light up with it? And so we're all trying to figure out how to treat it. And it's really, it's conflicting for patients. I typically would tell patients less than 2 to 5%. If you're less than 5%, your cancer is probably going to behave like triple negative breast cancer, even if it has 5% estrogen positivity. And we could try estrogen blocking pills to prevent recurrence, but it may not be as effective because estrogen is not the dominant driving force. So there's a lot of the science that we're still kind of perfecting, and it's why we still define this disease in terms of what it isn't instead of what it is. And that can be problematic for people to wrap their minds around. We had another question though about like advocacy and
Can
how
I ask you a
to.
question on
Oh,
what we were
please
just
ask
talking about
anything.
real quick?
Yeah.
So from, when someone's newly diagnosed, they have a lot thrown at them at first, a lot of terminology, it's a lot to take in. The process that you were just describing, because I've heard a few terms recently, is that also referred to as staining or a mammoprint? Is that what you're talking about there?
Ooh,
Glad you
so
brought that up. It's a hot topic today, the mammogram.
yeah, I was gonna get there, but I didn't want to dominate the conversation with too much.
Sorry,
Dr.
I
talk.
thought that's what it
okay.
was, and I just heard that from a TNBC patient, and I hadn't heard that before, and I'd heard of staining, so I didn't know if we're talking about the same thing.
It's similar. So staining refers to they call it IHC or immunohistochemistry. It's basically the staining of the cells and to count the cells, and that gives us the hormone receptors or what's going on top of those cells. The mammoprint and other types of studies are more genomic testing, looking at the actual DNA and the protein signatures of the tumor cell, meaning not just, I explain it to patients like this. It's like you're driving down the neighborhood looking at a house and you're looking like, oh, I love this colonial. I like the shutters. I like the color. Or you're looking at the blueprint and you're saying, you know what, I like how this house is designed. So tests like mammoprint are a little bit more detailed to that tumor, and it gives a different type of report that says your tumor is luminal A or luminal B or basal-like, and the TNBC ones are the basal-likes, and they behave a certain way. So no matter how much, if it's 5%, 2%, whatever your expression is, they'll say this tumor is behaving like this. So it's a bit of a different designation that can maybe be a little bit more specific. Dr. Kelly, what do you think about that? Is that kind of easy way to wrap your mind around it?
Yeah, more or less, I think just to make things easier, just as how Dr. Mo described it, it's just something looking at the DNA of the tumor as opposed to looking at just the cell surface or the structural, components. So sometimes when we look at things from a biochemical point of view, like looking at your DNA, you can actually tell a little bit more precise information. I think that's what the mammoprint technology is doing, as opposed to someone manually just staining a handful of cells and getting information. I mean, more or less the information tends to correlate, tends to be the same. It's just that with, now with the different kinds of breast cancers that we're identifying, like we said, the luminal A's, the luminal B's, the basal-like, and there's going to be a whole host of others coming down the line. We're looking more towards designating tumors via their DNA profile rather than just their sort of, laboratory, sort of designation, because it's more specific. And once you get more specific, that means you can have more specificity in treatment options as well.
Yeah, and we're going to have another show about this too, because, we now have some data that's showing that the Oncotype test, which is another kind of test that a lot of people are getting, that basically helps you determine whether you need chemo or not. Guess what? Doesn't work on Black women. And so we now have a host of Black women who have gotten this test and made treatment decisions based on that data that could possibly be wrong. And that's pretty scary. But the mammoprint test does work on Black women and is the same kind of genomic test, or a similar kind of genomic test, but is more reliable. So that's a whole other episode that we haven't gotten to, because we just got some new data to show that, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, because I know my genetic testing I showed no genetic mutations when they do the standard genetic testing, like the BRCAs and PELP2 whatnot. But I did have expressed my tumor when they did the KRAS testing. Yeah, I expressed a high level of loss of LOH. So, and I know that is also linked to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading an article about how that's linked to even my tumor being, more aggressive because the chromosomes that make up my tumor are unstable. And it's not only just linked to breast cancers, but that chromosomal instability can also predispose me to, or my offspring, to like other congenital malformations like skull malformation. So there's definitely a difference in the two. And a question for the physicians in the oncology space is, should one like myself get retested, get genetic testing again at some point after your cancer diagnosis?
You know, there's two types of testing. There's hereditary or germline testing, what you were
Right.
born with, right? And then
Right.
there's tumor testing. What happened in your tumor that made it go haywire, that made this cancer happen? And so the hereditary testing, we have identified quite a few genes, and maybe every 10 years or so, we might find a few more. And
Mhm.
so there's something called update testing, and it is important to talk to your doctor about update testing. If you only got tested for BRCA1 and 2, for example, well, now we know there's a bunch of other gatekeeper genes, and you should absolutely talk to your doctor about that. And the companies that do this testing keep sort of updating as well, as we discover, like, these genes are like a ladder, and we think the ladder is this long, and then next thing you know, we find more spots, and now the ladder is this long, and now the ladder is this long. As we learn more about it, then there may be more testing that is necessary. So I'd say, about every 10 years or so is around what the genetics companies are recommending for update testing, unless something new drops in the literature, and then they'll send all of us a message and a memo and say, hey, there's a new gene, we got to test your patients for it. But usually every 10 years.
Okay. Thank you. And that's why clinical research is so important,
Yeah.
like, because it constantly evolves. Medicine never stays the same. You may treat, bacteria with something 5 years ago. Well, guess what? The doses increase now. So it's constantly evolving. That's why clinical trials are important. That's the reason why more Black women need to be involved in clinical trials, because our biology needs to be studied so that we can identify certain other genes that may be more relevant to someone who's, of West African descent or of a sub-Saharan African group versus someone, who's only being trialed and studied who may be of European background. So that's the reason why it's so important, because that gives us the results to constantly evolve medicine and to make more life-saving and innovative treatment methods to target aggressive cancers such as mine.
I trained you so well.
I love it. That's your baby.
I think Howard University have a little bit to do with it too, Rick.
I know. I'm teasing you, I'm teasing you. You don't tease me, but you're on my, you're in my lane, But I was with Dr. Melissa the other day, you guys, and Melissa Davis, who's moving from Will Cornell to Morehouse School of Medicine to have her own lab, which is so awesome. But she had just come back from Ghana and was about to go back to Ghana the next day. And so about a year ago, or maybe or so, they identified this gene called the Duffy gene, which could be leading to triple negative breast cancer. And she told me on Friday that she thinks she identified another gene. So she said she couldn't really talk about it, but she's, of course, I'm talking about it. But she's going to come on. We're going to have her come on the show hopefully during March to talk about her when she comes back from Ghana. But
So
she's
excited for that.
That's
I
exciting.
know, finding science for Black women that we've never known about before, that could be a genetic mutation that we don't test for now, because I don't have any genes either, But I think, the spectrum of our disease is all over the place. You have Melissa that has the gene, and so many women have it. We had Ashley Dedman on last week, and she has the BRCA gene, and kind of acted prophylactically and had a double mastectomy before she got breast cancer. But we have to address all of these things and understand the science for everybody. Everybody's biology needs to be taken into consideration. So we do have to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ricky.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's important for people to know, even after a double mastectomy, that you still need surveillance.
Yes.
I have unfortunately seen individuals who have gone through risk-reducing surgeries, right? Prophylactic mastectomies, and breast cancer can sometimes still happen. And so following along with your doctor and learning your self-exam is so very, very important, and listening to your body, because, people think that, that mastectomy takes a recurrence rate down to 0, and it's not necessarily the case. But when you are aware and in tune with your body, we can find stuff early and, really maximize chances for survival and decrease the chances of recurrence. So even those people who are watching, you've had a mastectomy, if you're not following with a doctor, you probably should be, and at least be doing a self-exam every month.
Really good point.
Yeah, well, my cancer came back after mastectomy and chemo and radiation. So, that's the problem with triple negative, is that we know it comes back so aggressively, right? So,
And it's why diet and exercise and nutrition and all these other things, they're buzzwords, but they're also important for what's called the tumor microenvironment. You're going to see a lot more in research and posters and all these things looking at where tumors like to grow and what's happening in the tissues around tumors that makes it conducive to growth. So we're learning a lot of things like about the gut and the intestines and making sure that you're pooping regularly. Like, you don't think it's a big deal, but it really is a big deal to get as much of that bacteria out and make sure that, you're getting that fiber, not just for colon cancer risk reduction, but for, risk reduction for recurrence of breast cancers and other things. But even in all that, knowing that cancer can still come back is why it's so important, I think, to have this foundational group of breasties to talk to and to rely on, because your mind plays a lot of tricks on you once you had a cancer diagnosis,
we have a question in the chat that how often should TNBC patients after treatment have scans? As often as you can. Like scary at first, right? I remember I was doing them every 3 months and every 6 months. And then when I got to 5 years, my doctor said, okay, see ya. What do you mean, see ya? Like, I'm not going anywhere. And he said, well, Ricky, you don't really need to be scanned at least for a year. And I'm like, well, I don't really like that. I don't want to not be scanned. We all have scan anxiety, but you want that reassurance. You want to know that there's nothing in there. And he said, well, come back when you're symptomatic. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I don't want to have symptoms. I don't want to, I want to be scanned. And so actually now I fight to get my scan every year because I have to fight with the insurance company, but my doctor has to put in something stupid to get it covered. But I want that scan.
Mhm.
I think most people do, like you want that reassurance, like you said, but what are the current guidelines right now?
So are you talking about a mammogram, a PET
No,
scan?
it's
What
a
is a
PET
PET scan?
PET scan or MRI, yeah, scan, a scan after.
Like a PET scan, like
A PET scan. Yeah.
Scan, yeah.
Well,
There are
what do they
none.
recommend?
There are none. There are none.
I don't think there are any standardized unless you're gonna go to your insurance company's guidelines, because for the most part, at least from my experience from my oncology colleagues, really the scans are sort of done if there's a reason to do them. So, usually you're being followed up by your medical oncologist or surgical oncologist every 3 to 6 months post-treatment, particularly your medical oncologist. He or she will end up doing, a lot of blood tests on you and looking at tumor markers and the like. Of course, doing a physical exam and making sure that you're physically, there's nothing suspicious, or whether you're having any symptoms. And basically the results of a clinical exam, physical exam, laboratory test will help determine whether or not a scan is warranted. Some oncologists go by the, maybe a year post-treatment, and then, take it, maybe every year or two after that. But again, it typically is kind of driven by whatever the lab work or the clinical presentation shows. And for the most part, at least the last time I checked, most insurance carriers are not going to have you go straight to a PET CT. They're going to make you do baby steps. Let's do an x-ray. Let's do a standard CAT scan. Let's do all those other things before we do that $1 million test, the PET CT. So they want you to go through all those steps. So it's really, unfortunately, not, likely for you to get routine yearly PET scans just because you've been, diagnosed and treated or finished your treatment for breast cancer, because there's just so many really it's the limitations from, the insurance carriers. But for the most part, it all depends on what your clinical presentation is, I think. What do you
And
think,
your,
Dr. Mo?
and your stage at diagnosis. If you're
Yeah.
early stage, they're betting on the fact that tumors like to grow back where they started the first time. And so they'll check you in the place where it started the first time. Or if you couldn't see it on MRI, on mammogram, and we call that mammographically occult. Let's say you felt your lump and the imaging didn't show anything. Then they'll approve things like MRIs because the mammograms aren't going to be effective. But, based on your symptoms, we can do more scans. And so who am I to say what symptoms you're having or not having? And that's all I'll say about that. And I tell
And
my
that's what my
patients that very
my
same
doctor-
thing, right?
Yeah, my doctor does.
It costs me nothing, right? To make sure that I'm addressing all of the needs of my patient, whatever their needs might be, whatever pain they're having, whatever headaches, whatever back pain, whatever they say, that's their issue, and I must address that. And that is what I will go to the mattresses for.
And I feel I'm busting at the seams right now because that is the question, the $1 million question. And I'm sorry, I have mad respect for you, Dr. Mo, Dr. Kalu, and the oncologists in this field, but I just feel like Ricky says, she did train me well. But what is it for the Black women? Because I'm sitting here, I haven't had a scan since January of last year post chemo staging. Okay. And I'm in a trial. I get exams by 3 different clinicians every 3 weeks when I go for my physicals, for my treatments. I have students, I have fellows checking me out. I have everyone looking at me from the rooter to the tutor, including my labs. And I will be very honest with you, my labs are very stable. They don't look like someone who's really going through what I'm going through. So the blood work doesn't always depict something is wrong. So my thing is that we know that triple negative is aggressive. We know that triple negative has, a 39%, we know that I have a 39% higher recurrence rate. Why are we going to wait until it's in all of my bones and metastasize to my brain to say, okay, now we're going to scan you? That's not right. It's not, and it's all driven by insurance companies. Who are insurance companies to dictate clinical practice and to know what's right for my patient? That's not right. And and I understand that it's like you have to basically put in a problem for your ICD code for that scan to be paid. I understand that, but it should be, more surveillance data, and more just it should be just routine for someone like me. I just complain about rib pain. And the same thing, it's like, I know what my doctor is doing. We talked about it collaboratively. We did share decision-making, and she ordered a plain film of my ribs. But we know a plain film is not going to rule out something of this nature.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
I
like
think
you have to go in steps.
you do, but I think that's why you need to work it out with your doctor, that you have a symptom that needs to be rectified. I think also, just as usual, we don't have data for Black women. So all of these rules that are in place do not reflect the fact that we do have a 39% higher recurrence rate. And I think a lot of the numbers, the statistics for our breast cancer are because of triple negative. I mean, I think if we really dug into the data, we would find that triple negative is driving a lot of that 41% higher mortality rate and that recurrence rate and that younger age stuff. It's because of triple negative. I think we just have never done this research, but again, that's why we're here. That's why we're here. So
The women too young for screening even, and that's a whole other
Right,
show, right? Because
That's a
here we
whole other
are,
show.
2 of the people leading the support group were too young to even get a mammogram. So I
Yeah.
think we got a lot of question marks about TNBC. But let's pivot a little bit and talk about some of the new things and the hope and the promise, I guess, over the last couple of years, because I think we're looking at more trials for TNBC now than we have in probably the last 10 years even, right?
When we first started, there was literally, there was practically nothing out there for triple negative.
was nothing.
So few
That's
trials.
why we started.
Yes, exactly. There were no targeted treatments. Now we have FDA-approved drugs.
We
which
have
is
Trodelvy and
incredible.
Keytruda, you know,
Exactly.
and so many trials too. I mean, some of the, we have now where Merck and Gilead are working together, doing like a trial with Keytruda and Trodelvy together. So the best drugs we have, what happens if you put them together? So we have a lot of data, but I think that's some of the research that we're funding. And I mean, Haley can describe some of the, we're funding some young researchers who are like really just on the cusp of breakthroughs. And I think the science is gonna happen. Right?
Yes, there's just so much focus on it now. I remember when, we first wanted to fund a triple negative specific research project. And, when we talked to people about it, they were like, oh, where are we going to find researchers that are only focused on triple negative? Like that was, how we're not going to have like a pool of applicants to choose from. And now when we go to any of our medical conferences, whether it's SABCS or AACR, wherever we are, we see just so many breakout sessions about triple negative, so many poster presentations. There is a lot of work being done right now to address triple negative.
Yeah, thank God for that. Not soon enough, not fast enough. So we got to keep working.
But progress has been made. I mean, you can't deny the fact that from when we started to where we are now, it's a completely different medical landscape. And there is so much hope. I talk to women, and you do too, Ricky, every day that are years from their diagnosis and who are thriving and doing so well that we had to start their own special Zoom chat for them, Thriver Thursdays, because, other than dealing with, some of the longer lasting effects of chemotherapy and this fear of recurrence, a lot of people are really doing well. And we're talking about 10-year survivors, 15-year survivors, even
I'm 11.
beyond that.
20-year survivors, 23-year survivors. You keep, the count keeps going.
Yes.
So what do we have to look forward to this month? What types of programming, what types of discussions? Is there a calendar where people can go and see all the things that's happening during the month?
Absolutely. Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Because you were instrumental
In the
putting that
comments, the link is in
calendar
the
together.
comments. too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I get to do the fun stuff, huh? Well, first of all, I just want to take a moment. I never heard the towel story from my founding sisters. I think it's incredible that you guys had the foresight and the drive to, take it from trying to raise money for your incredible, beautiful friend to now this. I mean, it's pretty amazing to step back and to see where we've grown and become. And funny little COVID story. During COVID, we're like, triple negative breast cancer awareness month is coming up. What are we going to do? And we decided to reach out to our community and ask our sisters to help and maybe even wear some swag. And one thing led to another. And now I think it's the third year that we're doing our Power of Three ambassador campaign. We have about 90 ambassadors that we've sent merchandise to, and the number 3 that Ricky's handing up. And everyone's going to be sharing 3 pieces of advice that they wish they knew about triple negative breast cancer, and times 90 or 100. I mean, we're going to have a lot of advice out there. And we have a page actually dedicated to a whole bunch of events. So we have a couple of things going on. We have our ambassador, our army that's going to be out there in social media land. And then we have our virtual events. If you go to tmbcfoundation.org and go to our events page, you can find, and actually maybe we can put that link here so everyone can find it.
Put it in.
Awesome.
Ricky,
And we
thank
have
you.
thank you, Ricky, an incredible lineup of events, everything from conversations with doctors and researchers to we even have some yoga and a sound bath at the end. We have nutritional conversations with Rachel Beller. Haley, help me. And there's so much.
We have a therapeutic writing
Yes.
program that you could be involved with. Just it's like a guided journal writing that's supposed to be super helpful. And some of our community members have suggested it after having such great experience with it. We have special editions of our Zoom chats for TNBC Awareness Month. We just have so much going on. It's something every day. So please follow us on social media. whether it's Facebook or Instagram. And even if you don't want to do that, you can go directly to our homepage, tnbcfoundation.org, and you'll see so much of it listed. And we just really hope you join us, and we hope you can find a home with TNBC Foundation, and of course with Touch, the Black Breast Cancer Alliance, and Cancer Fashionista. All of us work together to try to bring you, programming that you've asked for and that you want and need.
I
Right.
love it.
Thank
If
you,
people
Ellie.
wanna-
We're really excited.
If people want to donate, they can go to that site. If they want to get involved in advocacy, because we had a question in the chat about, well, how can I get involved, and where do I go for that? So I think we're going to put in the chat all of your organizations, your social media handle, so people can follow, and and just get involved. I mean, this is your family and your community for sure, and it's
You can always
God's
email
work.
me and I'll connect you. Connect everybody.
You can email us directly, and beyond that, Dr. Mo, you had mentioned donating to research. So if I didn't mention it before, because I honestly can't remember if I did, but 100% of the funds that we raise during the month of March from individuals will go to research.
Oops. It's our 10-year, in case you can't see, because we're so proud of our Zoom backgrounds.
Yes.
You guys don't know the behind the scenes. Before the call, we're like, oh, the background, we got it. So it's the first time you guys are seeing our virtual background. We're obviously very excited. It's our 10th year celebrating Triple Negative Breast Cancer Awareness Day. And we're just thanking everyone in advance and we're open to any ideas that you have, questions, comments, and please, if you know anyone with triple negative breast cancer, please do share, especially our Zoom support chats, which are really, really helpful.
That's incredible.
Right. And people are
Wow.
asking in the chat if this is being recorded. Yes, we always record every show. It'll stay on our Touch Facebook page. It'll stay on the Black Doctor Facebook page if you go under live, and then we'll put it on YouTube and within the hour it'll be on our YouTube channel. So it's always here.
And TNBC Foundation will share it as well as soon as we.
Beautiful.
And we need to give a shout out to Val. She's in the audience talking. Val
Oh,
Blackwell.
Val.
Hey, Val.
Wow. Well, we hope this has been relatable and reliable and real. It's what we set out to do every Wednesday night on blackdoctor.org, 6 p.m. Eastern time. And we're so thankful to our sponsors and thankful to all of you for being here. Thankful to the Triple Negative Foundation for existing and for supporting and for researching and for advocating and for holding up the standard for so many women and men. And so, Ricky, what do we have next week?
Next week, we are talking about lymphedema.
Lymphedema.
With Dr. Sherry, Dr. Sherry Prentice. Okay, everybody, I'm taking a screenshot, so smile. We can have it for social media, but
All
thanks
right,
for
let's do a
coming.
little bit of breasty love. Yeah.
Yep, I love this screen. I love this.
Doctor's in.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank you. The doctor is in. Breasty love. See you
Thanks for
soon.
having us and
Thank
And
you.
supporting
don't
us.
forget March 7th, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. It's on Facebook, on our Facebook page, and I put it in the chat, in the comments.
There it is.
All right.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Great to see you all.
Thank you, Amjin. Thank you, Black Doctor.
So,